Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajeem. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. Assalamu alaikum viewers. I'm your host Faiza Naqi with a prayer. May Allah keep you all safe, healthy and blessed, and may I would like to wish you all a very, very happy new year. May Allah bring all the happiness, peace and blessings to all of you, and may Allah hasten the appearance of Imam of our time, inshallah. Ameen. As we know, it's 31st December and everyone is about to celebrate a new year, and in many countries it's being celebrated already. We are celebrating in our warm, cozy homes with good food and a very safe place wherever we are. But the people of Gaza, people of Lebanon, people of Syria, and people of Yemen who are fighting for people of Palestine, all are suffering. They are suffering with cold weather, they are suffering with hunger, they are suffering with pain, agony, and they are suffering with lot more pain which we cannot even describe. So how would this new year is going to be for the people of Gaza, people of Palestine, because the fight they are having is the liberation of all humanity. It's not just the liberation of the people of Palestine, it's the liberation of all humanity, whether we know it or not, we understand it or not. And we can see the change in Syria government, and after that there is a discussion going on regarding ceasefire in Gaza, but it is on the verge of collapse as well, and we don't know it's going to happen there or not. Whereas when new government will come, like the administration of Trump, for instance, Trump was to finish Hamas. He would like to recover all the hostages. So we will discuss that in a deeper detail, what kind of new year about to see now, how it is going to be for the people of Gaza and Israel as well, because some tactical winnings Israel had by killing and through the assassination of some leaders. He did have some kind of tactical winning on his hand, but his other goals which it has already in regarding you can say regarding Gaza, the people to finish Hamas, to recover its hostages, and to ethnically cleanse Gaza is still there. So we will see how it's going to be happening in coming future, and who is going to really win, and what is going to happen to the people at large. What is our role in the whole story, and who is doing what, and what kind of role the West is playing, what kind of role Muslim countries, Arab countries are playing, and the rest of world is playing. So we do have a very prestigious guest with us. We do have Dr. Zafar Bangash, director of the Institute of Contemporary Islamic Thoughts, and we do have Khalid Mahmood Chauhan, who is a politician, activist, and businessman as well. We do have Farah, who is a director of Palestine Aid Charity, who is also an activist and a writer as well. Assalamu alaikum and hello and good evening.
Good evening.
Wa alaikum salam.
First of all, Zafar bhai, I would like your viewpoint, because you are in Canada, and your experience over there in the whole year might be different from us who from the people in Britain. So what are your thoughts regarding the Palestinian movement which is going on in West Asia and in Palestine itself, and how do you see the reaction of the people, and what future do you see? What are your collective first thoughts on this issue?
As far as the situation in Gaza and the rest of Palestine is concerned, obviously it is very grim. The Palestinian people are facing enormous challenges, but to their great credit, they have not given up their struggle despite the enormous odds that they face at the hands of the Zionists. And the fact that they are still continuing to struggle shows their dedication and commitment. This naturally has had impact worldwide. There are people, many non-Muslims also, that have been inspired by their struggle they have actually realized that the Palestinians have a genuine cause, and they've also seen through the hollow propaganda of the Zionists that is peddled by Western regimes as well as the Western media, mainstream media. But the ordinary masses, in particular the students, the youth, they have not fallen for this propaganda. So in Canada, as elsewhere, there have been protests and rallies. In fact, just today, around 11 p.m. Toronto time, there's going to be a rally for Palestine in downtown Toronto to, what is referred to as welcoming the new year. But I also want to point out that the new year is actually not for Muslims because our calendar is the lunar calendar. But anyway, that aside, the Muslims are, and their friends and allies, whether they're Christians or people of the Jewish faith or other faiths, they're all together in this. Of course, not the Zionists, but I'm talking about anti-Zionist Jewish people. They are standing up for the rights of the Palestinian people, and they will continue to raise their voices for the Palestinians as long as they face this barbaric onslaught from Netanyahu and his gang of absolute fascists and racists and bigots that have basically occupied the various positions in the Israeli regime's cabinet. So the struggle continues, and the future, of course, does not look very promising because the Palestinians are bottled up in Gaza. They are facing enormous pressure. We know that 2 days ago, the Kamal Adwan hospital in northern Gaza was demolished. It was blown up. All the doctors and patients and the medical staff were forced to go out and stripped naked up to their underwears and made to stand in the bitter cold for hours and hours, and then many of them kidnapped and taken to the Israeli torture camp Sidi Timin in the Negev desert. So when we look at the situation for the Palestinians, it's very, very grim, but to their credit, great credit, that they have not given up.
Thank you, Zafar Bhai. Khalid Bhai, what are your thoughts? What Zafar Bhai has said, how do you see the whole struggle of Palestine, people of Gaza especially, and especially the role of UK government, the kind of help on diplomatic level and on other levels it has provided throughout the year, and even now they are determined to do that. And how come they can accept, for instance, Taliban and ISIS, and they can think about meeting them for who are, I mean, kind of alleged terrorists, and everyone knows they are, and still they can be accepted, like we can talk to them and all that, I mean, on government level or whatsoever. But when it comes to people of Gaza, they don't have right to self-defense. They don't have right to defend themselves. They don't have right to live in their own homes, and it's been, flattened through bombing every moment and every hour, and in every hour a child is dying out of hunger or through bombing or through injury or whatsoever you say. So how do you see this thing, and do you see that people of United Kingdom has awakened to that extent which is really needed for that cause?
That's a good question about whether the people of the UK have awakened. I think the primary issue for the people of the UK is that their lens into what is going on in the world is the mass media, right? We do have widespread proliferation of alternative media. There's the internet, etc., and the mobile applications. So you have a complete disconnect between the politicians, the official political parties, and the mass media, which is portraying a completely different narrative. And what people are seeing on their sort of internet and their mobile apps. The thing is that sometimes those of us that are literate and are literate with technology and have all of these apps, we think that everybody sees this, but they don't. One of the things that comes across whenever I'm campaigning is there are a large number of people that still take most of their information from the mass media, and there is the problem that even with this almost brutal narrative control of the mass media, which is run by an oligarchy in the UK, just like it is run by an oligarchy in most of the Western world. A very small number of very powerful, very rich people who tend to be very closely aligned with the Zionists, if not outright self-confessed Zionists themselves. So you have the mass media basically trying to whitewash everything. And we have a situation currently with the BBC, which had a very powerful name historically, whether fairly or unfairly, but it was trusted by many people. There has been an avalanche of whistleblowers from the BBC, journalists, who basically complain about the almost brutal, vicious narrative control exercised by the BBC, where their reports are actually doctored, are actually altered. What they write is altered. The way that reports appear in the BBC's coverage, in the website, the way that they are reported by the face-to-face reporters, by the live reporters, it is actually different from the way the reporters themselves want to report. And there's an individual in the BBC's online presence called Rafi Berg. This has come out in an expose, who is a committed Zionist and a ferocious Zionist who controls the way that BBC content is printed online. So at a time when the ICJ has said there is a case to answer for genocide, at a time when the ICC has issued arrest warrants for the genocidal maniacs who are currently in charge in the Zionist ethno-supremacist state that we still call Israel, at a time when Human Rights Watch, which is not known for its pro-Palestinian views, which has been a very pro-Israeli, pro-Zionist organization historically, were known to whitewash Israeli crimes. When Amnesty International, which was likewise not known for its pro-Palestinian views, have both in the last 5 weeks published huge reports basically confirming there is a genocide in play right now in front of us in Gaza. You have the UK government proudly, the Prime Minister proudly announcing that he is a Zionist. That is tantamount to somebody on TV saying, I am a child murderer, I am a rapist, I am a mass murderer. Because those are the crimes that are being committed by the Israeli Zionist ethno-supremacist state. They are well documented. They have murdered thousands, tens of thousands of children. They have been, in their parliament, they debated the right to rape Palestinians. So they are rapists. It's a rapist state. They have been murdering people on a biblical scale. They dropped more than 6,000 bombs per day on a tiny little enclave. And by the way, this enclave was not exactly a Dubai before October, before the October breakout by the Palestinians. It was described by Ban Ki-moon as, he said, if there is a hell on earth for children, it is Gaza. This was in April 2023, long before the Gaza breakout situation and subsequent attack on Gaza. So you have a situation where the facts are very clearly aligning and very clearly demonstrating that what we are facing is a maniacal regime in West Asia. It is a maniacal, genocidal, ethno-supremacist regime that really in the 21st century should not exist. I have people constantly going on about, should Israel have the right to exist? Well, I now question why Israel exists at all at this time in human development. Why does it exist at all? Did South African apartheid have a right to exist? Well, Archbishop Desmond Tutu said that the condition of the Palestinians in Palestine is far worse than the condition of the indigenous African population in South Africa. So if apartheid South Africa had no right to exist, and we now have consensus on that, then why does this ethno-supremacist, homicidal, maniacal regime exist in West Asia? So the reality in the UK is that the political class is completely disconnected from the people. However, the people are kept extremely ill-informed. There is an iron clamp around information and how it's permeated. We still have local MPs. Our local MP peddled the idea of the 40 beheaded babies at a secondary school for girls. And this, weaselish individual then attempted to shake my hand during elections. Used because I said that you repeated the most abhorrent lie in order to perpetuate the most abhorrent crimes. And you provided cover for that. We cannot shake hands. And this is the thing that we need to, I think, around the world recognize, that the time of shaking hands is over. We cannot have anything to do with maniacs who promote ethno-supremacist ideologies and mass murder and rape. We can have nothing to do with them. They cannot be our friends. And the rest of us, the rest of the human population, has to reject this. And if that means rejecting the politicians who peddle the whitewashing and cover for these people, then that also needs to be done. So in the UK, we have a challenge. It is definitely a government that is captured by the Zionist lobby, and in a country which is not, I would say, particularly pro-Zionist. So we do have a challenge, but I think the barriers are breaking down. There are MPs who are honourable and very, very uncomfortable with what is happening. I think the barricades will break down. I think the situation in West Asia has surprised primarily the Zionists and their supporters. They thought that Palestinian resistance would crumble. I, for the life of me, cannot understand the depth of strength that these people have enduring what they are enduring and still continuing to fight. For any objective observer, we can see that the Israeli attempt to batter and bruise the will of the Palestinian and Lebanese people failed. Where the Lebanese people were armed and the Palestinians do not have the strength of arms that the Lebanese had, we can see that the Israelis ran. Basically, they ran. They were defeated. There's no question. So they used the one thing that they have at their disposal, which is bombing from a mile up in the sky, which is the ultimate coward's way. But that's what they have done. And then you can see the situation in Syria, which the Israelis are now crowing about achieving a victory. My personal view is that as a Muslim, there's the evil ones can plan, but the Almighty's plan is always greater. I think the fact that Syria has gone this way, and many people are now sort of almost kind of in grief that the Israelis are now going to envelope the Lebanese by going through Syria, etc., etc. I would urge a little bit of caution. Number one, where the Palestinians had nothing but straws to blow stones through, they have not been defeated in Gaza. Right, number one, they have not been defeated. Where the resistance had weapons to fight back with in Lebanon, they have actually defeated the Zionist forces. Be under no illusion. They could make zero headway on the ground. They had to just completely continue with their genocidal bombing from the air, but they made no headway on the ground. About 1 million Zionists have left because these people are basically thieves and robbers. And thievery and robbery is difficult when the indigenous population are fighting back and they're arrested. And so at the same time, the genocidal maniacs are trying to occupy more and more territory. This basically does not bode well for them because they are going to be very, very thinly spread. If they couldn't conquer Gaza, which is just a few miles, it's the size of a small town in the UK. If they could not occupy a few villages in Lebanon, now they have in fact occupied hundreds of square kilometers of Syrian territory. Their forces will be more and more thinly spread. And the notion that they are somehow going to become supremely powerful is laughable. So I think it doesn't help with the terrible, terrible pain and brutality and inhumanity being inflicted on the peoples of West Asia, on the indigenous peoples of West Asia. It doesn't help, but I think the overreach that we are now seeing is basically a path to local destruction of this evil race.
Thank you, Brother Khalid, for sharing your deeper viewpoint regarding the role of people and the determination of the people of Gaza, how they are doing their best to get their land back, and it's really a very inspirational thing. So, Farah, can you hear me?
Yes, Faisal, go ahead.
Sorry for captivating. So you are visiting Iran first time, and you are there. And how is your experience over there, especially at the time when it's been more than 1 year since this war is going on? And how do you see the reaction of the people over there, their connection to this cause of liberation of Palestine? Are they frightened, or how do you see what are your experiences so far overall, whatever you feel and whatever you experience over there, and what are you there for? So if you can share your experience about that as well, please.
Yes, firstly, thank you very much for the invitation to be on the show, and I'd like to wish everyone a happy new year. Yes, this is my first visit to Tehran, the capital.
Think so.
Of what? Hi, can you still hear me?
Now I can hear you, but it was, if you can speak now, I hope it would work.
Yep, thank you. I think it was maybe another call on my phone there. Yes, it's my first visit to Tehran, the capital of Iran. I didn't have any preconceived ideas of what the city or the people would be like, but I have been totally amazed at the modernity of the city, the traffic in the city, the architecture, the people, and everything has been just a fascination from the very moment that I arrived. I didn't know that there are a minimum of 20 million people who live in Tehran. It reminded me very much of Damascus. As you drive into Damascus, there is a point where you see the houses going up into the mountains and the hills, and Tehran is exactly the same. You're asking about people's reaction to what's happening in Palestine here in the capital of Iran. Well, I am here as part of an international delegation. There are 36 countries represented at a conference here, which is on the right, the global right to choose resistance. This is an international organization which has branches beginning in Lebanon and spreading to 86 countries throughout the world. So we have official representatives from many of the political groups that are connected to the Palestinian cause. And we have people here representing the Iranian government. And all I have heard from the very beginning of the conference through until this evening is the steadfastness of not only the Palestinian resistance and the Lebanese resistance, and indeed the Yemenis and Iraqi resistance, but also the burgeoning resistance in Syria against the Zionist occupation and the illegal government of HTS backed by America and Turkey. So we may well see in 2025 a Hezbollah type resistance movement based in Syria and made up of Syrian nationals, but we'll have to see if that's the case and how that develops. I personally do not want to, see another country torn apart by civil strife, by civil war. In Iraq, after the invasion, they then fomented sectarianism so that the Shia and the Sunni would murder each other and not take on the illegal invaders of America and Britain in their illegal war of 2003. So we've had representatives of the Iranian government telling us that at the very core of domestic and foreign policy of the Iranian government from the revolution in 1979 has been the cause of the Palestinians. Iran is the heart, in my opinion, of the axis of resistance, and they have proven time and time again, not only in the sphere of the United Nations, not only in the sphere of international politics, but we have Iranians who have been murdered in Damascus by the Zionist Israeli fascist regime. We have had Iranians, scientists murdered in Iran. So what we have is Iran as a bastion against Western imperialism, as a bastion against Zionist fascism and its designs for a greater Israel. It is a bulwark against these this convergence of hegemonic ideas between the West and between Israel of creating the new Middle East, and Iran stand and firmly for justice and firmly for dignity and for sovereignty for the Palestinian people, but not just the Palestinian people, for the people of Yemen, for the people of Iraq, for the people of Syria, for all the countries and sovereign nations that are suffering under illegal, unilateral, coercive measures, the sanctions that destroyed Syria. Iran stands firmly against that. And as part of the delegation today, I heard one of our comrades from Africa say that in 2025 there will be potentially 2.5 billion Ethiopians immigrating to Israel. So while you have a drop in the population in Israel, the people who were born there and the people who are the carpetbaggers who went for the free land, the free houses, the free education, the free health, all the things that are denied to the American citizen, yet the American citizen and taxpayer is paying for all these subsidies in the Israeli apartheid state. So if you're going to have an influx of Ethiopians to the Zionist state, then obviously these will be the new colonial settlers. These will be the people who will inhabit potentially parts of Syria going forward, a continued expansion in the Golan Heights and maybe even the Sheba farms, and the continued absorption and annexation of the West Bank into the Zionist state. So The other thing I'd like to mention is that I met a woman today who was the official interpreter at the conference, a lady in her 50s, telling me about her family, telling me about life in Iran, telling me what a safe, tolerant society it is. I've seen young couples walking hand in hand, girls without wearing a hijab, obviously through personal choice. I've seen ladies on motorbikes nipping in and out of the traffic because the traffic is hectic in Tehran. So I see a very tolerant, I see a very welcoming, I see a very hospitable and friendly environment and society. And I pray to God, now that I'm here in Tehran, that it remains so in 2025, and that the machinations of the Americans, the Israelis, the British and the Germans who want to steal the resource in the Western Hemisphere, I hope that doesn't come to pass.
Thank you, Farah, for sharing your experience and viewpoint as well. Dr. Zafar Bangish, I would like your viewpoint. In the whole one and a half year, how do you see the role of Arab countries? Obviously, we know Zionist countries are like, we know Israel is Zionist and the West is Zionist and they want what they want. But do you think that without the help of these Arab countries, without the help of Turkey, Jordan, and other neighboring country, Egypt, like that, and other Muslim countries who are playing their role, a vital role in the whole situation, it could have been possible? Because there was an activist who was saying that if Arab countries were really sincere for the Palestinian cause, they just have to step on that land, but they can't even do that. So how do you see this hypocrisy of Arab countries? I mean, especially from the point of view of leadership. And how do you see, you as a obviously community leader, you see the role of Muslim community in these countries, Gulf countries, Arab countries, or even the other Muslim countries, you can say. And now you might be observing the situation of Parashanar as well. As you can see, there is siege going on as well, and people are suffering because of lack of food and nutrition and everything. And there is sit-in processions are going on as well. With how do you see that part as well? Do you see any connection with that Gaza and Israel conflict, any connection of that with that or not? And how do you see the role of what they required for their awakening? I mean, apparently it says that it's 45,000 or 45,000 plus people who have martyred at the moment in Gaza so far, and there are so many under rubble and this and that. But obviously we do know it's more than that, and it's too much, and families are suffering over there. So what is the role of common people in all the Muslim countries as a Muslim ummah? How do you see this role of common people and the governments and everyone who, and another role which we see in terms of Lebanon, for instance, the leaders have been assassinated for this cause as well. So there is the two types of leader we are seeing in this whole situation. One who are giving their families, their loved ones, their everything, and for their lives as well, and there are the one who are just sellouts. So what are your thoughts on that?
As far as the Arab regimes are concerned and their rulers, the vast majority of them are agents of imperialism and Zionism, led by the Saudi regime. These thieves and bandits from Najd, they were installed in power by the British, who conspired with this bandit Abdulaziz ibn Saud and, of course, Sharif Hussain of Makkah, who was the governor on behalf of the Ottoman Turks. They instigated these two thieves and bandits to rebel against the Ottoman Turks, and the Ottoman Empire disintegrated. And of course, then the British created kingdoms for the Bani Saud as well as for the children of Sharif Hussain. If you look at the other Arab regimes, with the exception of course, Iraq, which is now part of the resistance front, the other Arab regimes are in fact all in the camp of the imperialists and Zionists, whether it is Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, etc. And add to that, unfortunately, Turkey, where the Turkish president has exposed himself as a rank hypocrite. He, in fact, his rhetoric is for the Palestinian people, but his oil and his steel and his support is for the Zionist entity to continue to carry out the genocide of the Palestinian people. I think your viewers and listeners should understand that the liberation of the Arabian Peninsula is as important as the liberation of Palestine, because unless and until Muslims take possession of the Haramain, the two holy cities of Makkah and Al-Madinah, unfortunately Muslims would not be able to mobilize their strength effectively. You also mentioned the issue of the Muslim masses in those countries. Presumably, with the exception of all the evidence that we have, with the exception of the UAE and Qatar, in the other countries, the masses are solidly with the Palestinian people, whether it's in Egypt or Saudi Arabia or Yemen or a number of others, even Jordan. In fact, the three countries, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and UAE, are terrified of what has happened in Syria, not because they have any sympathy or had any sympathies for Bashar al-Assad, but because they see these Takfiri terrorists now gaining strength, and they fear that similar groups might even undermine their regimes in their locales. So as far as these Arab regimes are concerned, they are a complete sellout. They are traitors to the cause of Palestine. They are traitors to the cause of Islam. I also want to clarify that, as you mentioned, that officially the number of deaths in Gaza is reported at 45,500. In fact, in July of this year, July the 7th of 2024, the British medical journal Lancet published a study in which they said that the death toll in Gaza could be as high as 186,000. I believe the death toll in Gaza is probably over 200,000, because the way the Zionists are bombing that tiny enclave every day. I mentioned earlier that the Kamal Adwan hospital was obliterated. Other hospitals have been bombed. Every hospital in Gaza has been bombed. The Zionists have carried out hundreds of strikes on hospitals. Not a single university is left standing in Gaza. No school exists anymore. In fact, the whole of Gaza, as the Zionist defense minister had said, that once we are finished with Gaza, it will be unlivable, it will be ungovernable. And that's exactly what they are doing over there. So we need to be very, very clear about the people that are supporting the Palestinians' right to self-determination, to dignity and honor and a life of fair existence, and the regimes that are in cahoots with the Zionists, with the imperialists, and with the oppressors of the Palestinian people. Of course, we know that it was Britain that planted this Zionist entity in Palestine, totally illegally. In fact, as Khalid mentioned, that people talk about the right of Israel to exist. Israel has absolutely no right to exist. It is a colonial entity. It is an illegitimate entity planted on the land of the Palestinian people. If you look at the list of the Zionist, ministers, etc., the vast majority of them are either Polish or Romanians or Russians or Serbs or other East Europeans. They have no connection whatsoever with Palestine. These are actually Zionist invaders, illegal squatters that have come to Palestine, that are killing the Palestinian people. And the reason why the Western regimes, particularly in North America and Britain, etc., and France, are supporting them because these people did exactly the same thing in North America. 200 years ago, they decimated the native population. At the time when these European migrants, they were not migrants, actually, they were illegal, people that landed on the shores of North America. They were starving, they were naked, they were, diseased, and the native population of North America provided them help, food, and support. And what did they do in return? They decimated them. At that time, the native population was something like 40 million. Today, they have been reduced to less than 2 or 3 million people scattered on reservations. So the reason why the Europeans and the Americans and the Canadians and British and others are supporting the Zionists, because that's precisely what they did with the native population. And that's exactly what the Zionists today are doing in Palestine with the Palestinians. So we have to be very, very clear about these things, that with respect to the genocidal policies that the Zionists are continuing, these are the same policies that the Americans and the Canadians and the British and the French perpetrated in North America, and the British in Australia and New Zealand as well. So there's a very long history to this. The fact is that the Palestinian people are struggling for their right to exist as human beings. They are in fact so generous that they're even prepared to live with these Zionist thugs, provided that everybody has equal rights in that land. But the Zionists, obviously, the racists and the bigots, as they're not interested in that. They want to wipe out the Palestinians. The way it is, unfortunately, that Gaza is, the north of Gaza, they will be completely obliterated. And the southern part of Gaza, the Israelis are likely to open the border crossing with Egypt and push the Palestinians out into the Sinai Peninsula. If the Palestinians don't leave, then they will obviously massacre them and slaughter them as they are doing in northern Gaza. As far as the Palestinians on the West Bank are concerned, they are likely to be pushed into Jordan. Many Israeli politicians, including ministers, have said that Jordan is the natural state of the Palestinian people. Technically speaking, this is correct, because Jordan was sliced off from Palestine back in 1948, when this tiny kingdom was created for the children of Sharif Hussain for his treachery against the Turks. So it is true. And today, Jordan's population is approximately 60% Palestinian. So in the technical sense, this is correct. But the Zionists, of course, have another agenda, which is to push the Palestinians from the West Bank and shove them into Jordan so that there will be no Palestinians left in Palestine. So the challenge for the Muslim masses, of course, we have no faith in any of the Muslim governments in the Middle East or elsewhere. Like, look, Pakistan is a nuclear state. But what about, what good is it, those nuclear weapons, that Pakistan cannot even come to the rescue of the Palestinian people? Instead, what the Pakistani regime is doing and the Pakistani military is doing, it is slaughtering innocent people in Parachinar, as you mentioned. In fact, it has been under siege for more than 80 days now. No food and water or medicines have reached that place. In fact, at least 50 people have died because of lack of medicines in Parachinar. People are being, they're being slaughtered, they've been killed. It's the responsibility of the government to provide protection to the civilian population in Parachinar. But unfortunately, they are refusing to do so. And we know there is a reason for it, because the Americans want to set up a military base in Parachinar. And they see the Shia population of Parachinar being opposed to this, because Parachinar is predominantly Shia. It juts and abuts into Afghanistan. And so what the Pakistan army is doing is it wants to push the Shia population out of that area or subdue them so that they would not oppose the establishment of an American military base over there. This is the dirty game that is being played at the present time at the cost of innocent people in Parachinar. And unfortunately, as far as the Pakistani government is concerned, it wishes to do nothing. It just wants to forget about it. It gets involved in other crimes, etc., against the people. And the Pakistani military is simply not, they are actually involved in, if we can call it, the ethnic cleansing of the Shia population from Parachinar. I've been to Parachinar myself. I'm from that region, and I know exactly what is taking place, what criminal conspiracies are being plotted against the people over there, and they are actually starving these people so that they will force them to migrate from there to other areas. So these are some of the sort of dirty things that are going on, and unfortunately, the future looks very grim, both for the people of Palestine, although they're not going to give up, and for the people of Parachinar and that whole region in the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, and indeed in Balochistan, because the military is hell-bent on suppressing them and crushing them and refusing to give them their basic rights over there. So my sort of assessment of the future is unfortunately not terribly good, although I know that the resistance front will continue to resist. All victory to the Yemen people, the Ansarullah, the determination of the Palestinian people, the determination of the Islamic Republic of Iran and the people of Iraq. And I fully agree that the Syrian people will rise up. I mean, these terrorists that have taken over the government in Damascus are Zionist and imperialist puppets. They don't have the support of the masses. All of the videos that we have seen, when they talk about, and especially in the Western media, that the people are so happy, they are coming and celebrating. When you look at the video footage, there are just a few dozen people over there. That doesn't constitute all of the Syrian people. In fact, Syrian people are being brutalized. People are being accused of being collaborators with the previous regime. The Alawites are being killed. Christians are being targeted. One way of sort of looking at it is to see how many Syrian refugees have gone back to Syria. It's a very small number. They're actually deliberately being pushed out of Turkey into Syria, but the Syrians are not going in there. Instead, millions of Syrians have actually moved out of since December the 8th. They've either gone to Lebanon or to Iraq, because that's the border areas that they share with. So I think Syria is not, the story of Syria has not ended. It is definitely a setback for the resistance front. I think a lot more is likely to occur in the coming year.
Thank you, Dr. Mangesh. I'm really grateful for your viewpoint. We just have left with 10 minutes, so I'll give 5 minutes to Khalid Bhai, to you, and 5 minutes to Farah. So how would you like to conclude? What future do you see? As Brother Mangesh said, at the moment, things are very dirty and we don't see apparently any hope. In one way, when we look at the situation of Parachinar, we look at the situation of Gaza and situation in West Asia, we see that this kind of might is right is the rule at the moment, and divide and rule is the kind of strategy being used by them. And Takfiris are the kind of their, you can say, weapon they are using in these countries to cut their heads and play with that, like footballs and balls and stuff like that. We have seen so many videos recently from Parachinar, they just cutting their head and playing with that, and not even leaving the 6-month child, and brutally killing just a few months old child, through the bullets in their mouth when a convoy was going 1 month before, and they killed like that. So here, who has the responsibility when governments are the puppets of these Zionists? And we know most of the people, majority of the people who have little bit of power, they are sellouts. So we are in a kind of situation which is a kind of transition of humanity, and we are in a situation where it's kind of decolonization is going on, and everyone is watching and maybe thinking what to do some people see themselves as helpless. Some people do come out and talk about it and educate and whatsoever. So who has the responsibility? How would this end, or we can minimize human suffering, because it's too much and it's not that easy to like go with that like this, like another year or something like that. There's no ceasefire coming, and how do you see the Trump coming and their administration, who is already saying that I would finish Hamas and I will finish I will recover all the hostages, whereas Netanyahu couldn't do that in 1.5 years. So what are your collective thoughts?
I mean, well, I would basically start with one thing that, both our faith and also life teaches us that when things are very, very bad, what is the one thing that you know? The one thing that you know when things are very, very bad is that they will get better. Similarly, when things are very good, you know that they will get worse, and therefore you need to plan for when they get worse. So right now things are very, very bad. But the thing is that the seeds of change have already been sown. I've spent my lifetime in business in the City of London and whatnot, and many people say to me, oh, well, we're seeing some global changes in this, that, and the other, and the BRICS, etc. And I said to them, you've missed the boat. It's already changed. It's already changed. You take any of the fundamentals, the economic fundamentals that govern the strength, the economic strength of a state, and from economic strength comes military might. These two are tightly aligned, right? The world's, biggest steel industry used to be in the US. Well, it's no longer. It's in China. Germany used to be the industrial powerhouse of Europe. It's no longer. Russia is. The world's biggest car market, even 15 years ago, was the US. Well, it's no longer. It's China. Right? The Chinese have lifted 800 million people out of poverty. That's 800 million people that have suddenly got educated, are starting to think, ask questions about wider than their immediate locality, which is what education does. It gives you access to what's happening around the world. So things have already changed. So the era of Western dominance over the whole world, which is what we've seen, this 500 years of murders, killings, brutal government, slavery, you name it, we've seen it. And that doesn't just mean in non-Western countries. In Western, Ireland is a classic case of, and if you look at the poor people in this country, right? So even in this country, you have a situation that back in, I did some studies during my A-levels when the average pay of a CEO versus the average person in a company, the CEO tended to earn somewhere around 29, 30 times more than the average employee. Now that figure for the UK is thousands. And in the US, it's even bigger. So you have a huge disparity. The income, the wealth of the 0.01% in 1971 was about 2%. 2% of global wealth. In 2010, which is the last number I've seen that's been calculated, it's 11%. So you have a massive sucking up of wealth into a very, very small bit. So what does all of that mean? Well, what it means is that the global power politics has already changed. So what you're seeing in this kind of behavior, this kind of almost craven, morally depraved behavior of supporting genocides in West Asia is the attempt to cling on to the vestiges of empire. That's what it is. It's the attempt to cling on. At the same time, however you regard the war in Ukraine, it really doesn't matter. It's a war between two neighbors. We haven't got a dog in the fight. But NATO has made it its war. right? NATO has made it its war, and NATO is being defeated in Ukraine. That is quite clear. So you can see that the empire is suffering a colossal defeat in Ukraine, massive. So therefore, you're going to see some other attempts and, to change the narrative from one of abject defeat to, oh no, we're winning. And this is what you're seeing in West Asia. But can they win? Can the empire continue to win in an overstretched empire? With the BRICS, with the US deliberately through its, weaponizing the dollar and using sanctions in that way, well, they're forcing the BRICS to basically dump the dollar. When the dollar gets dumped, then you will have rampant inflation. All those asset price bubbles will start to crash. I mean, this is simple economic, economics 101. It's inexorable. And the reason why it can't be stopped is that Chinese development cannot be stopped. With the Russia-China alliance, those two are neighbors. It cannot be stopped. So what you're going to see is the thrashing around in West Asia in the short term. And the short term may well be the next 1, 2, 3 years. But the real issue for the empire is how to defeat Russia and China. And that's not possible. So it's, they're going to be caught between a rock and a hard place. An intrinsic part of that Eurasian power politics that I can see is Iran. Iran is fundamentally a member of that Eurasian alliance that seems to be emerging with Russia, China, Iran. Now, Israel's hopes of swiftly attacking and destroying Iran, they're not going anywhere. Right? Iran on its own is capable of defeating Israel very, very quickly. Iran's real issue, to me it seems, and I'm not an insider, but looking in, is that they are actually gearing up to defend themselves against an attack by the US. So Israel is, so this is a power of the Zionists that it's narrative, it's shouting. People who shout can't actually do, and they cannot do. So going back to your question about those peoples of West Asia, the peoples of West Asia need to understand that this is a waiting game, that the Zionists cannot survive, that the situation in Syria has too many contradictions. A lot of these Takfiri terrorists, many of them went from, they were picked up from the UK as, and Canada and from the West, where they've had little, recruiting camps. And don't tell me the authorities didn't know that they were scooting over there. The fact is that these people, however misguided they may well be, they left under the belief that somehow they were going to be liberating Palestine. Well, now they're up against the borders of Palestine. How easy is it going to be for the empire to control them? So what you will see in Syria, I think, is many forces in play. It will force the contradictions, internal contradictions in Turkey right into the forefront. It forces the internal contradictions in, as Brother Zafar said, the internal contradictions in Jordan right into the forefront. The internal contradictions in Egypt right into the forefront. We are already seeing the internal contradictions of Pakistan playing out. So I think what you're going to see is a lot of change. But this is not the time to lose hope. This is the time to resist, because change is coming. It's already here. That horse has already left.
Thank you so much, Khalid Bhai, for your contribution. Farah, we just are running out of time. It's 9 o'clock already, so I just can try to give you 2 minutes. If you can share your viewpoint, what are your hopes about Palestine? What would you like to share?
Okay, I think just in the term going into 2025, I think the danger is the continued ethnic cleansing of Gaza. I think we are witnessing the continued unaccountability of the Israeli state, regardless of what the ICC and the ICJ do, although I am in total agreement with the judgments so far. But even an arrest warrant Netanyahu won't be arrested. Many countries have already backtracked. Many of the countries that have signatories to the Rome Statute have said that they won't arrest him should he come to the country. In fact, I believe he was even invited to Hungary by Orban. And you think of the connection between Hungary and the pages that exploded in the hands of Lebanese civilians not so long ago, 60 days ago. So the real danger is that Israel's not held to account. It sees itself as winning the war in the short term. It sees that it has neutralized Hezbollah and that there are no rockets being fired from Lebanon and landing in northern occupied historic Palestine. It's seen the collapse of Syria. It's going like a domino effect, one after the other. First Gaza, then the annexation of the West Bank, then the attack on Lebanon, which is de facto led to a ceasefire and silenced the missiles and the weapons of Hezbollah in the short term. The collapse and destruction, annexation, occupation of Syria is a hammer blow, without a doubt, to the axis of resistance. And they are now focusing on Yemen. And I don't believe it'll be long before they focus on Iraq. It all depends really on how steadfastly Trump is behind the Zionist regime in 2025. Iran could probably defeat Israel in 7 days. Israel cannot exist and cannot stand alone without the backing of empire, without the backing of the USA, and all the bombs and all the bullets and all the deaths come from the USA. So that's my fear going forward. Israel is emboldened so long as the axis of resistance can maintain its position. I'm not sure Israel can go much further or achieve much more than it already has. But don't think for 1 second that the greater Israel plan is not to the very forefront of their military and political views going forward. But whether or not they can achieve that will come down to the axis of resistance, but also very much if China and Russia play a more military part in the axis of resistance.
Thank you so much, Farah. I'm really grateful, Dr. Bangash and Khalid Mahmood. I'm really honored to have you all on the show for your contribution. I'm really grateful to the viewers. I would just say, whether we win or lose, whoever, but the most important thing we need to do is choose the right side. If you are at right side with the right people and doing right things and working towards justice, truth, and humanity, that's the thing which is important. Look after your